commercial capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight,
Ijoma Oyenato.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, House of Representatives to beam its searchlight on unremitted funds by the NNPC. INEC assures Nigerians abroad that the hitches encountered in the Anambra elections will not reflect in the 2015 general elections. President Goodluck Jonathan indisposed, unable to attend Investment Council meeting in London. And US President Barack Obama sends a letter to Afghanistan's leader Hamid Karzai, promises to respect his nation's sovereignty.
Tonight on Business News, a bill to establish the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Agency passes second reading in the Senate.
On sports news tonight, tough times await athletes using performance-enhancing drugs as the IOC discovers new ways of catching cheats.
And from Abuja, police in the federal capital dispersed civil society protest against federal government's purported neglect of citizens. How much exactly is the figure of unremitted funds by the NNPC to the Federation account? Well, that's what the House of Representatives would attempt to discover in the next couple of days. At today's plenary, the House members asked to know the volume of crude oil sales by the NNPC from January to date. In a motion by Honorable Haruna Manu, the House was told that there is the need to make the government agency render a proper account of what accrued to the NNPC so far this year. This motion enjoyed popular support from most lawmakers, even though some were divided on the mandate of the NNPC. Our correspondent Lanre Lasisi reports.
If the oil sector is the goose that lays the golden eggs in Nigeria, then the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is the agency that translates that into the dollars that runs the economy. It's also an agency that has always been of interest to the Parliament. This time the issue is on the volume and value of crude oil sales.
Disturbed by the information credited to the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC on the status and remittances to the Federation account that the total crude oil sales from January to date was $20 billion. But the NNPC remitted only $7 billion to the Federation account.
The motion elicited a rich debate which also touched on the effectiveness of the Parliament's oversight function.
We in the Committee of Finance have continued pestering NNPC to come and divulge the revenue that they are collecting on behalf of the people of this country. We had never had any positive response.
The NNPC had remained a dark tunnel, and no matter the intensity of light you try to put into that tunnel to see what is happening, the darker it becomes. How long are we going to continue, Mr. Speaker?
Because some of these problems arise because, in my view, we are not taking our oversight function very seriously. I'm sorry to say, but that is the way I look. So, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that we don't set up an ad hoc committee, but let the relevant committees go and investigate and come back to us.
I would also gladly join others to urge for the necessity of a very neutral committee that will, without fear or favor, go into this matter, investigate it, and let us discharge our duty.
But the motion enjoyed a smooth passage.
Please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it.
Falling revenue from the oil sector and its impact on the budget and the economy. This is one investigation Nigerians will be interested in. And if those who are constitutionally empowered to demand these answers don't get the answers, then who can? Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Well, some state governors may have instigated this probe when at separate fora they alleged that 2.3 trillion naira is the amount the NNPC failed to remit to the Federation account. In this background report, we take you through the origin of these allegations. When the news of NNPC's non-remittance of 2.3 trillion naira broke, it was more like another scam in a long list of such that might just fade away with the passage of time. In the days to come, the reality of the unaccounted funds turns out to be an issue that could not be wished away. When the much-expected state monthly allocation was not released, it didn't take much time before Governor Adams Oshomole blew the whistle on the missing fund.
I know that there is serious crisis. Imagine the kind of money the NNPC ought to remit to the Federation account. And from some of the figures that have been thrown around, NNPC is owing the Federation account over 2.3 or so trillion naira. Edo State has a share of that amount, which will translate to several billions of naira. But last month, many states couldn't pay salaries.
The concerns of the governors on the non-remitted funds soon became a never-ending struggle as more governors continue to voice their displeasure.
There's a lot of work that has been completed that we haven't paid for, and part of the reason for that is the revenue shortfalls that we are experiencing and revenue delays also that is coming from the federal government. Delays in remittances of monthly FAC allocations, lack of agreement on NNPC accounts at the FAC meetings. I think over 2 months now, I think between August and September or so, the FAC payments didn't come on time. The augmentation also didn't come on time, and as far as I'm aware, not all of it has probably come from the last report that I got. So it just puts your planning into some distortions.
As the beat goes on, the NNPC would have to present its account in recent years to counter this allegation. Otherwise, the speculations that there are sacred cows in the cabinet stands to win more sentiment, which may discredit the essence of the federal government's transformation agenda. Well, this issue of unremitted funds has created a rift between the executive and the states. While the states argue that the unremitted funds have slowed down development efforts at state level owing to the inadequate funds, the executive and the NNPC have dismissed as untrue the allegations that some monies are missing from the Federation account. Another aspect of this is that some experts believe that the alleged missing funds are partly responsible for the budgeting controversy. Now, to discuss these developments, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the Director General, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Very good. Let's begin from the whole dividing argument itself. Is it possible that, some monies could be missing or unaccounted for in the Federation account by the NNPC?
Of course it is possible, because this has been a recurring issue, with the NNPC, and unfortunately the leadership of the country has not been able to actually put its foot down on this matter. You recall that there have been several probes, there have been several panels to investigate and streamline the systems. We had the House of the National Assembly probe on subsidy, we had the Dotun Suleiman Committee, we had the Rubadu Committee. We also have series of reports from the 90 reports. All these reports have highlighted one way or the other all the shortcomings, in the system of the NNPC. There is no doubt that there's a lot of transparency issues in the NNPC. And the concern here is that because the economy is so dependent on oil, NNPC is very strategic. So if we don't get it right with the NNPC, we are not likely to get it right with the economy.
Why aren't they actually getting it right? When you look at the kind of figures we're talking about, 13 billion, and all that, is there no structure, to talk about how money comes in and how it goes out? What should be the procedure? Why are the books always such an issue for the NNPC?
You see, when you have a system where there are too many vested interests, and you have a system where there is no moral authority by those up there to be able to call people to order, to be able to impose appropriate sanctions, then you have a problem. So the issue really is the will, the political will, to make sure that things are done right. If you go through some of these reports that I mentioned, I mean, you find out there has been very solid recommendation, some valid recommendation that could help to streamline this process. But because of all these other interests, it is difficult to muster the right kind of moral authority to be able to put things right.
Okay, let's look at the economic angle, because a lot of analysts have said that this whole volume and value of crude oil sales is so important because we're talking about budgeting, etc. Do you agree with that? And
Of course, it's very strategic because if there are these recurring shortfalls in oil revenue, it has implications for fiscal sustainability, because you have a budget that has been predicated on a particular set of assumptions. You have the assumptions on the price, you have assumptions on the output. Granted, over the time we have had issues with oil theft, we have had issues with oil prices. But even if you make allowances for all this, you still see that these figures don't add up. We have seen instances in the National Assembly where the figures quoted by the Accountant General is at variance with the figures quoted by the NNPC. It's different from the one quoted by the CBN, and sometimes at variance with what's quoted by Finance Ministry. So there are a lot of things wrong with the entire system. It's a system issue. And unless we have the political will to put things right, we'll have a problem. Recently the Finance Minister was at the National Assembly, where she was asked about subsidy on kerosene. This is a subsidy that goes into hundreds of billions of naira. And she said she has no idea.
Well, let's look at this particular investigation. A lot of Nigerians are interested in it. How do you think it's going to go, on a final note?
Well, I'm not too confident, because we have gone through this route several times. At some point, all this investigation will get to some brick walls and the whole thing will fizzle out. So I'm not too optimistic, but what we are hoping for is that if the major reform that we'll expect takes place through the instrumentality of the PIB, then we could begin to see some sanity in the oil and gas sector.
Right. It's at that point we're going to have to leave it. I'm going to thank you for sharing your insights with us on the news at 10.
It's a pleasure.
I've been speaking with the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we've been discussing the attempt to investigate the allegations of non-remittance of funds to the Federation account. That's by the NNPC.